The long wait is over. Newcastle United 2, Liverpool nothing, and Toon Army for the first time in
Hey,
70
2-1, get it
years.
right.
The
Two
Toon
one.
Army have a domestic trophy. Luis Miguel Echegaray, LME, welcome to ESPN FC Live. We've got European Cup winner, of course, First Division winner, FA Cup winner 3 times, Stevie Nicol. We'll get to him and his commiseration in a
He can
second.
wait. He can
But
wait.
FA Cup finalist, a member of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle United, who ended up second in the Premier League, and Shaka Hislop, a very happy man. Let's start with you. How are you feeling? Newcastle 2, Liverpool nothing. Your reaction, my friend?
2-1.
2-1. 2-1.
Yes,
Yeah,
2-1. That's
let's
right.
give
A
Liverpool.
million apologies. Federico Chiesa scores a goal on the late stages. Stevie Nichols about to bite my head off.
Apology accepted.
2-1 to Newcastle United. That's right. But anyway, regardless, the statistic, the fact remains. For the first time in 70 years, Newcastle have a domestic trophy. Shaka Hislop, give me your reaction, my friend.
All right. So to answer your question about how I'm feeling a whole lot better now than I was 5 minutes ago. And then up until 5 minutes ago, my Sunday was going as good as I could hope. And then all of a sudden, as Liverpool, let me call it correct there, as Stevie continues to remind us, Chiesa grabs that goal and becomes a whole lot more uncertain. But listen, given everything that Newcastle has, or how long the wait has been, I don't want to say that Newcastle have endured, but how long the wait has been for arguably the best fan base, and I'm biased, the most loyal fan base, yes, I'm biased, in English football, it's well worth it. And the celebrations will go long into the week, let alone the night, and deservedly so. I think just in terms of, aside from the romantic of the day, over the course of 90 minutes, I thought Newcastle were the better. And I think there were reasons for that. But kind of given the heartbreak of exactly this cup 2 years ago, it's great to see Newcastle not only be back at the final, but finally win it. And deservedly so.
Yeah, and that's why we began with you. And yes, Stevie, thank you for reminding me that Federico Chiesa did get that goal, making it 2-1. At least it was that moment. But the most important thing here was obviously we begin with Newcastle United. And by the way, Eddie Howe, the first English manager to win a domestic title since Steve McLaren Middlesbrough in 2004. Newcastle United, by far the better team today. Stevie, let's focus on that. And what happened with Liverpool today? Is it as easy as to say the PSG hangover, the decision-making, Newcastle was just that much better? Well, give me your thoughts on this loss today.
Yeah, I think it's just a case of running out of steam. There's no question that Newcastle were the better side. It shouldn't have been as close, and Shaka shouldn't have been sitting on the edge of his seat for that last 5 minutes, because Newcastle had other chances that they probably should have scored. Kelleher made a couple of good saves. But the truth is, Liverpool didn't have the legs. I mean, Newcastle got everything right. They closed them high up the park the entire game, never let them breathe, never let them get into any sort of rhythm, and just physically owned them, quite frankly. And every time Kelleher had to go long, Dan Burn was always going to win every header against Jota or Salah or whoever it may be. And so Newcastle got this spot on. They didn't turn up to play silky soccer against Liverpool. They turned up to use that physical advantage, that extra juice in the legs. And I think the commentator pretty much summed it up. When you think about it, Liverpool's had 9 more games than Newcastle. So you imagine that's 9 midweeks without a game. That whole thing catches up with you. And I think there's no question that had a lot to do with it. But can't argue. The best team won. Newcastle should have won by more. And for Liverpool, they just need to now try and get some legs back and finish off the Premier League.
Yeah, because we talked about it earlier on. I mean, even before PSG, they weren't good against Southampton. Southampton were leading 1-0 in that game. So obviously those minutes catch up. But Shaka, let's begin with that first 45 minutes, because it was pretty much the blueprint for what we were going to see for the remainder. I mean, Stevie mentioned how Newcastle's strategy under Eddie Howe was really just like, look, let's Mike Tyson this, right? Everybody has a plan until you punch them in the face. Let's punch them in the face. Let's be direct. Let's be aggressive. Let's be physical in the air. And it began with the opener from Dan Burn. And it was coming. It wasn't just like a shocking, it was coming from every corner. What did you see from those first 45 minutes? And I guess that goal right in the 45-minute from local man Dan Burn.
Yeah, so I felt that if Newcastle were going to win this, they were going to have to deny Liverpool early on. I felt, well, or to the other side of that same coin, if Liverpool were going to win it, they would have to get a goal or two to the good in the opening 45. For all the reasons that Stevie just mentioned. Never mind the 9 more games, the 9 more midweek fixtures that Liverpool have had to play. They're off the back of 2 incredibly difficult games against PSG, who you can argue right now are playing some of the best football in Europe. Added to that, 120 minutes and a penalty shootout, how draining that is both physically and mentally. And I thought that would play a part. So I thought if Liverpool were going to win this, they would have to get a couple of goals early on. And Liverpool are sitting on top of the Premier League table for a reason. It was not beyond them to do exactly that. But I thought Newcastle did more than just a good enough job in denying them. I can't think of too much that Pope had to do in the first 45. For large spells, I thought Newcastle dominated not just the midfield, but the fact that it stayed in nil for as long as it did was because of simply how good Liverpool were at the back, and in particular, Konate and Van Dijk. And then all of a sudden, the set piece. And I've never been a fan of zonal marking. Why it is McAllister somehow finds himself on Dan Burn is beyond me. It was not for the first time, I'll have to say. Dan Burn won another header earlier on from a set piece over McAllister that Guimaraes tried to flick on, but it ended up right in the arms of Kelleher. So you see it coming. And then all of a sudden that was a deal breaker. Or that kind of opened the game up a whole lot more. Newcastle started to play with more confidence. There started to be a little bit more room, kind of given the fact that Liverpool had to go looking for a goal, and that played into how much better I thought Newcastle were through midfield and the attacking third. Then the second goal, then a bit of a response very late on edge of the seat stuff. But truth be told, again, I thought Newcastle got it right. Liverpool had their issues coming into this one, as we both mentioned. But the better team, the overarching conclusion is the better team won.
The better team won. We've all said it. We all think it, obviously. Arne Slot will admit it himself. But here's the thing, Stevie. After the first 45 minutes, Dan Burn gets his goal. Both teams get into the dressing room, and Newcastle are leading 1-0. So I guess my question to you, what are you thinking that Arne Slot should be doing here? Because the reason I ask is because when the second half begins, not only are we not seeing changes from Liverpool, as Shaka is mentioning, there's more push from Newcastle's side. There's a warning sign already from, Bruno Guimaraes standing in interference to play, even though, with that goal from Alexander Isak was taken away, and then eventually he gets his goal. I saw Liverpool as worse in the second half. Like they weren't getting better. What did you think was going to happen or should have happened, I guess, in the dressing room that you didn't see? Like, to me, did you agree? Do you agree with me? I thought it was the worst performance in the second half, even though Chiesa got that goal.
Here's the thing. Sometimes there's not an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's not an answer. The way the game was going. Yes, you can argue right now, looking back, that maybe putting some fresh legs on, but then the problem is they don't have any fresh legs. So sometimes it's just not an answer. Liverpool at half time, in my opinion, I couldn't figure out how they were going to win this game. I couldn't figure out how they were going to get back in the game. Because the way the game was going, Newcastle were not changing in the second half. Newcastle were always going to be pushing and getting in the face of Liverpool and making Kelleher play it long. And so, even if you bring Núñez on to give yourself a bit of a target, but even when he came on, you saw that it never changed anything.
Yeah.
So, I don't really think Arne Slot had any answers, because I don't really think there are any answers. the way this Liverpool side is right now, the way they're beat up. I mean, every challenge, Newcastle looked stronger. Every second ball, they were sharper to it. I mean, we can sit here and go through the whole game, and Newcastle, in every single facet of the game, were ahead of Liverpool. They were a step ahead in thinking, and they were a step ahead physically and in sharpness. So, I don't think Arne Slot can be held accountable for the second half performance, particularly because I don't think he had any cards to play. He really didn't.
I have to say, I totally agree, Stevie. You look at Liverpool's side, I thought Arne Slot had his best 11 out on the park. If you want to make changes, it almost felt as though it would be changes for change's sake, maybe just to get fresh legs on. But then Kaiser has been inconsistent all season long, and that's putting it as nicely as I can. And I know Kaiser got his goal in the end. Do you throw Darwin Nunez on? When having Darwin Nunez on is exactly what Newcastle want. It's exactly what the likes of Dan Burn, they are happier to see a Darwin Nunez on there than anybody else, because they will cope with the aerial and the physical threat of a Darwin Nunez better than anybody else on the park. So I'm 100% with Stevie here. I just don't think that there was much Arne Slot could have done to change things.
I guess I'll play devil's advocate here, because for the simple fact that I agree. I think that there were, when you are playing a cup final, you have to put out the best possible lineup to get the best possible result. But when context is needed, days after playing an intoxicating PSG, I look at specific places, Stevie, I guess, like Andy Robertson did not come off against PSG, worked his absolute heart out in that game. Was there an argument to be made that maybe Tsimikas should have started today? You know what I mean? Like, it's because...
I mean, again, it's a reasonable question. When you've lost a game, it's reasonable to say, okay, what could I have done different? But the fact is, if you're playing Tsimikas before Robertson, you're playing a player, in my opinion, who isn't as strong and isn't as good. And so that kind of tells you that you're clutching at straws when we're talking about, could we have played Tsimikas? Is Tsimikas really going to make a difference? I don't see it.
I guess I'm just using...
You can't play Gakpo. He's not fit. Gakpo's not fit. You've got to play Diaz. You've got to play Salah. Jota. Of all the players should have legs, because he's been out and he's just got back 2 or 3 weeks ago. So he's the one guy that should have legs. But then if you can't get him the ball, then you're looking at, can you bring Nunez on just to be some sort of physical threat against the likes of Bon and Shah? So every way we're looking here, it changes that could have been made or should have been made. I really don't think it makes them any better.
Yeah, Monday morning quarterbacking. No, I get what you're saying. It's a tough spot to give them, and to be honest, I guess we continue now where we began, Shaka, which you cannot take anything away from Newcastle United, who took full advantage of what happened today. I mean, the plan was perfect, because to beat Liverpool, which, by the way, has not happened, I think, in almost a decade for Newcastle United over Liverpool. To beat Liverpool, you can't really play their game. You have to really try and punch them in the face. And it was kind of a perfect storm. Let's be direct. Let's be aggressive. And I thought, players like Joelinton, for example, were magnificent today. Did you have a player in mind that really spoke to you today, or was it just a collective effort? Was it just a full-on Newcastle United side?
The only player that, well, first of all, the second part of that statement, I think, is 100% accurate. It is about a collective effort, and I drew comparisons to the cup final of 2 years ago when Pope was suspended. He comes in and while didn't have an awful lot to do, sitting in the first hour of the game, had to come for a few crosses, come into traffic later on, and you see the value of him, and he just breathes so much confidence to our back four that he knows so well. So if I'm picking one individual out, I'm gonna go Harvey Barnes a little bit here, because he comes in for the suspended Gordon, and I thought did an incredible job. And while again 2 years ago, given the suspension to the goalkeeper, coming in, you just you just wondered how he would feel in that exact same situation. If this result went the other way, how would that affect Harvey Barnes? And I thought he put himself about. I thought I thought he was a valuable inclusion from the start, and never let the team feel that Gordon was amiss. So credit to Harvey Barnes for that. Outside of that, to point out to me, it was about a collective effort. Joe Linton continues to have this incredible partnership alongside Guimaraes. The back four and Kieran Trippier, who's endured so much criticism, but you see the value in his leadership and his experience. And again, coming in a big stage, in a big situation, does not put a foot wrong. I thought handled the occasion so wonderfully well. Alexander Isak ran himself into the ground, took his goal so well. You know, it just, wherever you look on the park, I think there are praises to be shared.
Yeah, and a reminder, everybody, that at this point, because of the win, the Carabao Cup, where Newcastle at least have Conference League football for next season. Obviously, they want more in the table, but at least that's what they have. Some words from Bruno Guimaraes, by the way, to Sky Sports after the game on Eddie Howe. Well, first he says that, you know, it's the best day of his life, and a lot of credit to Eddie Howe, the manager that has done so much, and happy for him as well to get this win. We got some questions here as well. And this is one, Stevie, that I was actually going to ask you, regardless if anybody asked it or not, but surely the international break has just come at the best time for Liverpool, or what do you think?
Well, it would be the best time if a lot of the players weren't going on international duty.
Yeah, good point.
Unfortunately, these days it's not quite as easy for players to turn around and say, "Oh, oops, I've got a dodgy groin and I'm not going," and get a break that way.
Well, I guess the follow-up to the question is: is there a world here where they can mess this up now, that their Premier League chase here?
Well, there's a world where they can mess it up, but I think the good news now for Liverpool is those midweeks without a game are going to start happening for Liverpool, because it's the Premier League and that's it. So they are going to have, you know, it might take a couple of weeks. So I guess the answer to your question is yes, because there's no Premier League games coming up. That means that they get a chance to try and get their legs back. So yeah, I guess the answer is come at a good time. And as I said, hopefully a lot of the players can somehow not play for the country and have a few days break and certainly have a game off. But the good news for Liverpool right now is that the midweek games are done and dusted, and so that should give them time. Listen, let's not forget they've got a 12-point cushion. That means that with 9 games to go, they've got to lose at least 4. And Arsenal at least 4, and then draw, and Arsenal have to win every game. So that's a great cushion to have, and I expect in a couple of weeks Liverpool have found some legs back and should take care of business.
Yeah. Can I just ask? Well, the players are going on international duty, and we don't know who's gonna get called up, who's gonna play, what kind of minutes they're gonna see, right? So let's not speculate too much on that. But I'm half wondering, I would love to hear Stevie's opinion on this. Isn't it a good thing for the players, for the Liverpool players, on the back of 2 really disappointing results, just to be away from it for a bit? Just to, you know, the old cliche, when you're winning, you want to play you want to play twice a week. Now that you've had these 2 difficult results back to back, I kind of think that, you know what, let's just separate ourselves from it, get away from Merseyside for a bit, and just come to terms with things. Again, who plays and how many minutes they see on international duty might change that. But as we sit right now, I just kind of think it's a good thing for them just to be away from it for a bit.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, you know, and it used to happen more often because there weren't as many games. But you know, in the middle of a bad run or things were just a little flat, I mean, that's what coaches would do. You know, Kenny and Ronnie and Joe and Bob would be like, you know what, go away, don't come back till Wednesday. Have a couple of days, disappear, go with the family, just do whatever, forget about football. if you can, for a couple of days, and then come back, and then we'll restart. So yeah, 100% get away, different environment, get rid of the cobwebs, and get ready to start again.
Yeah, a mental reset for sure. And hey, and who knows, maybe in between that time, one of these three players might have signed a new contract and you get to boost something. I'm just saying, you never know. But the mental reset is definitely important. All right, so Shaka, one question for Newcastle here. Now that they've got this Carabao Cup, obviously it's fantastic, a domestic trophy for some 70 years. What's the objective now in the Premier League? I know that the obvious answer is to keep going, but do you think that they'll put their foot off the pedal a little bit because they at least have this trophy, or is the focus still, no, we can still think we can get Champions League football at the very least?
No, I think with the top 5 in England getting Champions League football, I think, as we said, that's already kind of done and dusted, that it would be top 5.
Yeah, it's done.
I think that's Newcastle's focus. Has to be. While European football is and already qualifying for European football is a welcome bonus. Now you're not hiding to nothing. You're not protecting anything. So go out and play every single game to win it. Stevie would know better than most people on this planet. Winning breeds confidence, and with this win, well, yeah, you'll take a few days to celebrate, I'm sure, and maybe the international break coming at this moment is as good a time for Newcastle as much as it is for Liverpool. You then come back with a very singular focus, and that's finishing top 5. That's trying to play Champions League football, and in the longer term, as I've said, for Newcastle, all that Newcastle can hope for is to season in, season out, be threatening to finish top 4 or top 5 or whatever it may be. They've shown that they can do that. They've shown that they can threaten over the last couple of seasons. They've now shown that they can go all the way and win a trophy. Psychologically, that's absolutely huge for them as well. And now I expect that mentality continues, not just this season, but for many a season to come.
Yeah, holding on to Alexander Isak is definitely one of those factors as well. But Newcastle United are 6th, 1 point off Manchester City in 5th. So Man City and Chelsea actually did them a favor because Newcastle obviously have a game in hand as well. But that race for the Champions League is absolutely diabolical. It's great for the neutral, but if you're in it, wow, it's going to be a good one. But anyway, there you have it. Newcastle 2, Liverpool 1. For the first time in 70 years, they have a domestic trophy. Liverpool now has one single-minded focus to win the Premier League. You can watch both of these two fine gentlemen later on tonight on ESPN FC. Shaka Hislop, Stevie Nicol. I'm Luis Miguel Echegaray, LME. We will see you next time.
I'll be laughing. I'll still be laughing when you see me later. Don't worry.
I know. I can't wait to see what Stevie's going to be. No, Stevie, you'll be fine, right? You'll be smiling a little bit. Are you later tonight or not? All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time on ESPN FC Live. Till then, bye-bye.